David was a family man. It was all about the two of us and him together as a family of three. David was a man of service, but most of all, he was a man of God, and he loved his Heavenly Father and his family.
My father, David, was a pretty honorable man, hardworking man, almost unmatched in some situations. Like my mother said, he's very much a family man, cared a lot about us, my mother and I, and then Alyssa when we got married, and we started dating. And then everybody else in our family. He was pretty good guy to be around in that aspect, and cared a lot about us, but worked a lot. He was home a lot. Like my mother said, he was a man of service, so he would help people out in our church, build wheelchair ramps, helping build doors for handicapped people in wheelchairs just to make it more accessible. So if he wasn't at work at the fire station, he was helping others, and whether I was at our house or other people's houses, and he was always doing something. So like I said, the work ethic was very unmatched. He's a good man, my best friend, and he was an awesome person.
No, he was my best friend. David was my best friend. David went on a call one time out to the outlet mall, and a semi had wrecked on the overcross right before it, and had the occupant of the driver of the semi had fallen down through a 3-story high column. And David, being 6 foot 6 inches tall and weighing about 195 pounds, they grabbed him by the ankles and dangled him down that column, and he was able to reach the truck driver and pull him out, and they were able to provide first aid and EMT services to him at that time, paramedic services. And so that was one of his benchmarks of his career, was rescuing the truck driver from there. So anybody that was tall like David was, I still say is, he was put in many situations where his height was a benefit to the fire service, definitely, especially when he was on strike teams for the wildfires and everything. But then also, of course, there were those embarrassing moments when he ripped up several yards of concrete and pavement by getting bogged down in the mud at one side of the engine. Isn't that what happened?
Yeah, I believe something along those lines, yes.
Anyway, everybody took video of it because it was too funny, and he never lived it down. Oh, one of his high school buddies was a paid call firefighter, or also known as volunteer, but they were paid for each call in that time. He was talking to him one day, and he hadn't decided what he wanted to do, and we were married, and he was working a sales job. So his friend said, hey, you need to just come and start, get on paid calls. So he did it. He did it. And within about 3 years, he was hired full time. And when he came home off of that first 24-hour shift, he said, sweetheart, I cannot believe that they pay me to do this. And he said that for years and years. He probably would have told you that from his hospital bed had he been able to. So, yeah.
David and Colleen welcomed me with open arms. They were, pleasantly delighted that someone finally chose to stick around this guy right here. The one thing I feel like is a key distinction that I remember about David is his hugs, because he's such a big man. You go in, hug him, and you just feel like so coddled in his hug and loved. What was it like for me? It was a new environment, and I feel like Colleen really prepped me for that. She kind of let me know she had been more experienced than I was, and like, you're gonna be home some days by yourself, or a lot of days by yourself if they get sent on strike teams, things like that. And all you can do is love them and support them, because they're out here serving for a bigger purpose. And so I think as time goes on, you just learn to adapt and realize, hey, it's not about, we miss each other, we love each other, but absence makes the heart grow fonder. And you just realize everything's for a bigger purpose when you're serving somebody else. And I feel like that's one thing David always talked about, was serving other people, that was the true meaning of life, or to happiness, was to give without expecting in return.
One day, after David had been on about 2 years, he came home and he was really concerned, and I wondered, what's going on, because he wasn't talking a lot. And I said, a little while later, after he had done a few things around the house, I said, honey, what's going on? And he said, Colleen, I just had reality hit me in the face that divorce is high in the fire service. And he says there's a very high divorce rate, and what are we going to do about that? And I said, we're always going to talk, we're always going to love, and we're always going to pray. And I said, we can do it if we do it together. And the minute you think that we should do any one of those things, we need to talk again. And so that's what we built our love and our marriage on, was talking, loving, and praying. And we tried to impart that to our son. And David was a great father. He set big shoes to fill, and he's doing a good job. Dallin's doing a good job following in his father's footsteps. I'm proud of him. I know his dad would be. David had a very strong sense of self and family. He knew who he was, and he knew what he wanted, and he knew how to get there. And that defined us. Dallin and Alyssa were married in the midst of his health problems when he was in the accident, and that was because Dallin knew his dad wanted to see him married. And so that was a fond wish and desire of his dad's, that he was able to provide for him before he passed away.
Dad taught me a lot, from just being a man in life and going about things and learning things as far as how to live life, but also to be a good fireman. I believe he instilled a lot of those fireman mentalities and standards, expectations, far from when I was a child all the way through until he passed away. And even afterwards, I still find myself learning things that he may have taught me before. Self-realization after the fact. Mostly, I think, my father taught me to be steadfast and immovable in any situation that you are in, and whether that's at work or at home, and being with family, and in dealing with any of our own personal issues, or maybe being in the service of others outside of work, but then that just all translate to the fire service when I am there. So he taught me a lot, a very broad spectrum of things, and that's how to maybe swing a hammer and deal with tools. Taught me a lot about how to interact with people and provide good customer service. We were a small family business owners, and we ran that together. So showed me day-to-day responsibilities that needed to be done, and overall just it made me a man, and simply put.
Taught you respect.
Taught me a lot about respect and love, and not only just self-respect, but respect for others, and yeah. First of all, my father David, being a part of the department that we both worked for at the same time, we are all hazard mitigation, so that involves structure firefighting, running medical aids, wildland firefighting, search and rescue, hazardous materials responses, and then anything that people call 911 for. So to grow up seeing that he was gone a lot, whether that was at work, working overtime, providing services to the city that he worked for, but then also when these strike teams would be toned out, or he'd be a part of those teams. He would go out in a group of about 21 to 25 guys, depending on what the assignment was, all over the state of California, north and south, and sometimes he'd be gone for 14 days, probably minimum, and he had some assignments that were extended past those amount of time, but as a child, I didn't really understand, my father was just doing what he's, supposed to be doing, and I thought it was cool. But now that I've been a part of a strike team and been working at the department for about 3 years now, I've been able to see firsthand what that was all about, and to put myself in his shoes and what he felt and went through. So it's not only exciting, it's a lot of hard work, lots of blood, sweat, and tears, I'll say. We're shed on the city side and on the strike teams, and seeing a lot of the damage and destruction that these wildfires caused. It just puts me in awe, and sometimes I don't even feel like, wow, this is real, or it just is indescribable at sometimes. But growing up, just to see him how strong he was, he'd come home and he'd still would play with me, or as I got older, we would go and do activities, play basketball, camping, or any service activities that our church would provide or he would do, or he had to take care of his business that he was running. And more importantly, he would just always be in the moment with us as a family, no matter how hard or how long he was gone for. So pretty awesome to see as a child, and that has helped shape me to who I am today. My father, Engineer David A. Spink, I would like him to be remembered as just the awesome and happy person he was. There was never a moment where you could catch him not happy. He could be at work for 6 days straight, running 30 calls a day on no sleep, and you'd still find him smiling, or the desire to help somebody out or put himself in and help another fireman out or help another person out. His service was never brought down due to the fact that he was tired. He was just happy. Very motivated person as well. He was competitive in a lot of things in a good way, as far as his physical fitness and his appearance, the way he worked, and he would work hard no matter what it was. If it was taking out trash or on a structure fire or a really hard call that required a lot of laborsome work, he was always there at the forefront and trying to lead by example. Although he was never a captain, I think he held a really high position of, supervision. He was just a very good leader in that aspect, and was always able to take the bull by the horns if needed, or he could sit back and let maybe the younger guys figure things out. And so my father, I would like him to be remembered just as simple put as the happy man he was, and just a hard worker and a loving person. Honestly, there wasn't a hateful bone in his body. So very awesome person to be around, and it just was very contagious. Like I said, couldn't ever catch the man not smiling, unless I maybe made him upset. But other than that, he was a happy person. So I would just want people to understand and know that about him.
I obviously had a different relationship with David than they do. I came along a little later, like 25 years later. But mine and David's relationship were our foundation, I would say. We both were learners. We loved to learn, and I feel like that's where we really bonded, was his love to constantly learn and just grow, whether it was physically, mentally, spiritually. And I think that's what I want David to be remembered as, someone that was just constantly striving to be better, always learning. And I feel like he really instilled that in me, was to always learn and question things and, keep an open mind.
We were first affiliated with the California Fallen Firefighter Foundation, and then when we were contacted initially by the National Fallen Firefighter Foundation, it was such a blessing in our life as I would read the information that they sent, and to know that people were in the same shoes, maybe not the same size, but in the same shoes, and to know that we had commonalities, and that there was a way of honoring our fallen ones. So that was really a blessing to me, to us.
Here's to you, with that smile on your face. Here's to you, and what I want to raise to this moment we share.